Good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday TGIF for the Evergreen Indiana updates in version 3.11.2 webinar. Today we are going to look at some of the updates that relate more to us in Evergreen, Indiana, that you may not have heard about. Some of them will be sort of duplicated from the local admin refresher as well as the cataloging refresher, and then some had not been covered at all. Today you get to hang out with myself, Britta Dorsey, the Development Support Administrator for Evergreen, Indiana, and our awesome Evergreen, Indiana Coordinator, Ruth Davis. We are tag teaming this webinar today. So today, the topics of conversation, we're going to go in by category. So first, Ruth will be covering local administration updates features, and these features and updates are coming from updates between where we ended at 3.9.2 plus 2 through 3.10 and now 3.11.2. And then in circulation and cataloging, I will be covering those two. And then we will return to Ruth to talk about the BPAC, our new OPAC, the acquisitions, and then we will look at the resources we used to create this webinar, as well as some announcements for you. So I am turning it to Ruth now.
Thanks, Britta. And Britta's going to drive for this first part as well, so there'll be some back and forth. Local administration is kind of one of those things that we don't really think about until we have to think about it. But once we get into it, there have been some pain points in the past, and hopefully some of those are alleviated. So this first one, I wouldn't call it a pain point. It's kind of an outgrowth of something else that we're hoping to do. But there is now a notes field in the hours of operation. And Britta, there's a screenshot here, but if you would go to the client, yes, and just pick an org unit, any org unit.
So okay. Let's go with Greenwood, because
it had the many-sided
that's where my mouse was.
Nice.
Okay.
So we're going to go to hours of operation. So this grew out of the hope that we'd be able to have split hours. That has not yet materialized. But one thing that has happened is there is now a notes field. And this is good if you perhaps have to close your library for an hour we'll say Monday, because Britta's cursor is closer to that, at noon, so that you could put in and say, hey, we're closed for lunch, even though it's reflected in the hours that you're open this entire time span. Now you could put a note in there saying, but no, not really. And that's going to be reflected in the OPAC information when people go to see your hours of operation, if they click on your username in there. So we're going to get over here to Greenwood and see how that has been implemented. Britta knows all the back alleyways to get to a certain thing. I just hit that reload. Yeah, you got going. So if we go down to Greenwood and click on that now, it's going to show us the information. You can see now that note is reflected in there. Please keep in mind that this is our migration server. We did not just add a note for Greenwood willy-nilly to the production server. But if you want us to, anybody from Greenwood, we will. But you can do it yourself if you have local admin permission. So let's go ahead and go back to the initial slide, if you don't mind. So we talk a lot right now as we're doing these updates about angularization or angularized interfaces, which is the rewriting of the code that displays these things to you in a more modern language. And there are several updates to this. One of the things that came out of this, there was a complete rewrite of the statistical category interfaces. If you remember, previously they were on one page. There was a ton of information that didn't go in a necessarily logical order. And it had to do with both item statistical categories, so things that those statistical categories that show up in the holdings editor, and patron statistical categories that show up in the patron record editor. Some examples being the plaque home library, those types of things. So now on the local admin screen, you'll see that there, rather than there being only one link to statistical categories editor, there are two. And just go ahead and click on either one of them, it's fine, Britta. And if you could scope that to, let's unclick the consortial collection and then scope it to Evergreen. And so here, if you look now, this is much cleaner. You can see which ones are required. And you know, if you are a cataloger, that when you go into the holdings editor, you know the audience is required. You can't actually save that record unless that statistical category has a value in it. Now, if we want to, go ahead and click on any one of those so that we can see what it looks like to get in here. And then you can see the values that are assigned to that statistical categories. In this case, for audience, they're adult, juvenile, and YA. And so I'm not going to belabor the point. This is pretty easy it's much more intuitive than the one previously. There is a bug associated with this, has to do with deleting, and also I think editing. Is that correct, yeah. Britta?
Yes.
But we expect to see a fix in that very soon. So this is a really nice upgrade to statistical categories. The other one is cash reports, and this is kind of a wah-wah. It has been rewritten. I think in this, it is much more visually pleasing. But one of the things that has noticed is that when you go to print it, there's a bug in there that does not include the date for which you are printing it. And that's important information for those who do print off of this. And there is another little conflict in there. But if you're just viewing this on the screen and just kind of check in based on bookkeeping, whatever, this interface is also much more intuitive. So now it's split into two tabs. You have the desk payments that you would have seen, I believe it was up above in the previous cash payments, cash report. And then you have another tab for staff user payments that would have been down below, and that's going to be for like forgiveness. So, or other types of things. You can go ahead and click on that if you don't mind, Britta. So, and of course, one of the things too, and this is not the best interface, so I'm going to skip that. I'll talk more about angularizing interfaces here. You can, of course, now configure your grids in this interface, so you can use that little gear over there. If there's information that you don't want to see, information you do want to see, and make this work a little bit better for you. Then the other thing that I'm very excited about for local admins is the new library settings editor that has, again, been angularized. And if you remember the library settings editor previously, it's just this long list of settings, most of them not being used by Evergreen Indiana, some of them, but then wading through it, what does it mean? So in this case, you're going to default, when you first go to the library settings editor, you're going to see 10 of these. And it does take a minute for it to initially load. 10, in my estimation, is not enough. So I have mine scoped to 100, as does Britta. and we just wait a second and it loads them. But one of the cool things about this is that the new filter, or the search bar up here, I guess it is a filter, it works as you would expect, as I expect it to, where I get the opportunity to type something and then send it off to do its work, as opposed to putting in a letter and it just continually trying to search if I'm not fast enough, and everything taking real long. And if I typo, then I have to like deal with that, the whole thing. So it's also very easy to edit these. You just click on that edit link and then update the values. The actual settings themselves have not changed. It's just in a more intuitive, pleasing layout. And I just love it. That's just me though. Okay, let's move on.
All right, sounds like it's me next. Let me close some of these windows. All right, so circulation. There are a couple very small updates that are more like maybe quality of life, and then others that are bigger, and some you may not have access to yet, but that's okay. I wanted to let you know that it is coming down the road. The first one we are looking at, similar to like the cash reports, the patrons with negative balance module has now been updated to Angular. So it's just a lot easier to, it's a lot nicer to view. We also, one of the perks of Angular is we now can manage the actions menu. So, so if you want to clean that up and just focus on actions that you would do for this, then we can do that. And similar or the same as before, I'm pretty sure you can double click on the row to get to that patrons account. Usually there is more information on columns, but I wanted to remove that just for this presentation because we don't want to show patron data. So this is just another step toward angularizing more and more of Evergreen. The biggest part I think that has been angularized is but still experimental, is the top secret experimental circulation module. It is currently hidden from access, but the hope is to provide more details later, whether it's later this year or closer to when it's going to be released, for you to maybe get in there and start testing with it. But this is also why I can bring this up as well. I enabled it for our MIG server, so you can see we have the search for patrons, the checkout. So I can show you. Well, I don't remember her, but if we search for patrons, this is a practice account that we created. See how it's angularized. So it's going to look different. It's going to probably feel a little different, but it'll be much more mobile, and we'll have more accessibility.
Pretty.
Yeah, more accessibility features, and everything. We will no longer have to go between the two different print templates areas. That is, if you've looked at the print templates in the server admin menu, where you have to manage your holds pull list template, you can now see there are a lot more options because this is preparing us for that transition to Angular. They're not usable right now because we don't have the experimental module enabled, but these will be there to see. And also you can see that not all of if you compare the circulation menu with all of these fine features, they are not all listed in here yet because it's still a work in progress, but it's very exciting that we're moving forward. And that's one of the next big changes. Instead of having to go into detail view now and see if an item's total number of circulations, they have added a new column into item status for total circulations. It's um, it's just one more way to make item status one of the most useful tools in Evergreen, Indiana for managing our collections. I consider this more of one of those quality of life additions.
And this, if you think about this too, this is a way to do a type of kind of ad hoc report as well. Now with this column, that you could have a shelf of books that you just scanned it, and then with that you can actually print your full grid, and you have now a printout that includes whatever you have here, whether it be the title, barcode number, and the circulation. So it's just a great way to get that insight documented as well.
Absolutely. And there was a comment that it is helping some libraries to decide if they want to reorder books that just look tired, if they've been circulating enough, and if they need to be reordered. So this is a great addition to the item status screen. This is, oh, I lost my.
This is amazing.
Yeah, this is something I found interesting that was included in version 310 of Evergreen, and this is the new renewal date policies. Right now, if a patron renews their items early, they actually lose time between the day that they renewed and when the new due date is. They lose that, like those 2 days or however many between that were split between when the renewal date happened and when the original due date. These are new circulation policies, which, I mean, mind you, will be managed by us and the admin team, but these will allow libraries to choose to adjust those renewals to take into account the number of days left before an item is due. So in this example, the to extend, so this will add those days. So this example, 14-day checkout renewed after 12 days will result in a due date on the renewal of 14 days plus 2 days to cover the lost time. And then there is also a early renewal minimum duration. So you can limit how many days before an item is due that a patron can renew it. So for example, those hotspots that are hot ticket items, if they try to renew them, if they can renew them, if they try to renew them early to make sure that they can get more time in, if you have a duration interval stuck on that, they might not be able to when they want to. You can set it to a specific date, so like 2 days before the actual due date, and that will help. Just help it keep circulating. And yes, Ruth mentions that this is located in the server administration, the circulation policies, and again would be created by us. Question: are these settings that we need to update, or is this automatic? These will need to be created by us in the circulation policies section in the server admin. I would think this is going to be discussed at the patron services committee. So I definitely recommend to look for any updates in the future. But I would assume that this would be something you might want to discuss internally as well, if this is something that you want to enable.
So this is, please do not put in any help desk tickets yet. This is something that we need to evaluate internally on how we can address the circulation policies. Circulation policies should differentiate between Evergreen Indiana circulation policies, which is a governance tool, and Evergreen circulation policies, which is another set of settings within the software. And this is a set of settings within the software that we're talking about. So we need to look at how we might implement that, and then the procedure for updating that. We are going to also talk in the patron services that perhaps this is something that we want this to be a global setting. not a global setting, that's another thing, but a global behavior, something set for the entire consortium. We have a lot of things like that, but where it's possible to have it that libraries can choose, we like to have that too for local choosing of your own destiny. So when words fail, I go to fantasy. So there's that. So if you could hold off, we're going to have a patron services committee meeting in about a week and a half, and this will be on the agenda. And there will be guidance about that.
Yes. Preferred name, this is a smaller but maybe more quality of life for those who have patrons who commonly use a preferred name. There have been columns added. The patron search, that was already there, so my apologies for not taking that part out. But the group member details page, if your library uses groups, the preferred name columns have been added to that screen. So you will be able to see the preferred name of patrons within group member details, which is really helpful so you know what name to use when you are speaking with your patron. I've included the catalog staff view in both the circulation section, and then I will end it in the cataloging, because this, I think, is a big change for both departments. So I think this is the biggest change to besides, of course, the porting to Angular. This is the addition of the staff view tab in the staff catalog. This brings back the information we desperately missed in the old staff catalog. And I personally prefer this format with the tab because of the separation between this record information and the item table. It allows us to focus on that record data and not have to scroll so darn much to get to it. The links allow circulation to start new searches. I'll just bring it up. So I think that was the.
So while Britta is bringing this up too, there is development that has not yet been connected to this yet. That will allow our Novelist Select subscription, which is our OPEC enhancement, to be included in this staff view, so that it would also have read-alikes and the shelf browse ticker and things like that included in the future. So that's development that has been done, but is not applied to our installation at this time.
So the links within Staff View allow us to actually start a new search using that that keyword or that title. So if you wanted to see what else was available in the Elin Warner series, you can click on that series title and it's going to create that search for you and show you the titles in that. And that being said, let me go back to this and move on. Nope. And go on to cataloging updates, because adding on to what I just mentioned, this makes it that much more important to make sure we are using the correct headings for the subjects, genre, for the author, for the series title, to make sure that when a circulation staff member clicks on Elin Warner, that they are bringing up the correct or all of the titles in that series that should be connected by that series title. So that's basically the connection between the circulation and cataloging, because circulation can't search well in the catalog without catalogers. So I think this is an awesome. I'm so excited that this has returned, and I think it'll just make searching the catalog that much easier for everyone involved. A couple new updates for merging, whether it's records or record notes. Previously, when we upgraded to 3.9, we had the addition of the record notes, which are basically just little notes that catalogers can add to bibliographic records to confirm that series information is like confirmed if there are questions or anything related to that. Before this update, we could not merge those notes when we had to merge records. They were removed, but now that is fixed, and I have examples. And then also the other one is the record merge activity notations, which I think are very helpful. So if we go in, let's look at the record notes first. So sorry, there's just so much. I'm going to open these real quick to show you. So this is the one with record notes. This is the one with record notes. So I have a record note on this bibliographic record, and I need to merge these two records. So I'm going to merge, and we had the record note on the 3303 record, but we are going to choose whichever one, this one as the lead. So I'm going to select it, merge. I'm on MIG, so I'm not actually doing this in our catalog in case these should be. But the record note will now be on this record, and it also includes a note that the record such and such was merged into this record, which I find extremely helpful because I think it will help us be able to contact. Let me see if I can. Creator. It doesn't tell us who did it, but it does tell us that it did happen. So we can say officially that there was a mismerge, and we go on from there. It also shows I can't remember if this was there before or after. So if I go back to merge, if these records are still in my bucket and I reopen them to merge, it gives us that note again right here to tell us that it was merged. Quality of life update. The ability to double click an item in Holdings view has actually been missing for some time. And while this isn't an extreme update, it's still really useful. So now we can just double click on a single holding in Holdings view, and that will open the item in Holdings editor without having to access the actions menu or right clicking, whichever is faster for you. It's just whatever workflow is.
Before we switch screens, do you want to go into and share with this group the thing that you shared with the cataloging listserv about the Holdings view, since not everybody's on that list?
Yeah, so I sent an email out yesterday because I was so excited that I found it because I felt so smart. I've already updated, so let's.
Britta is smart, and also this was for me also a quality of life thing because I despised is a gentle way to put the way the Holdings view looked after the upgrade. You may or may not notice I am easily distracted by things, and it was very distracting to me. So we're going to see a view of that in a moment.
Okay, we'll just go with this big one. All right, Holdings view. I've already updated it, so I'm going to reset.
Well, for some people, it may be an upgrade because there are reasons to have it like that. But for just general looking at something, and you'll see here that location where it has all those blocks and blah. if you can, well, I'm going to be quiet and let Britta talk about this.
No, it's okay because I'm like, okay, what am I doing right now? Okay, so we have a lot of tabs by default visible in Holdings View, and we have these very somewhat annoying, in my personal opinion, new squares that
Chonky
break down
block.
the locations, the call numbers, and things like that. And I mean, it's still fine even when you start removing some of those um, holdings that you may, or columns that you may not need when you are looking at something. But it's still kind of just, it's ugly in my opinion. So I found a possible alternative to those to help clean it up a little bit and still see the information that we want. So if you remove the location barcode column, it gets rid of those boxes, and then we can just replace it with the owning library call number and barcode columns. And so you'll still see all the information. And this may matter to you or not. I don't know, but I wanted to share it because I was excited and I was hoping that if they bother you too, then this gives you an alternative too. So it's not really an upgrade or update or anything. It's just something I stumbled across and was proud of myself. So
Thank you, Britta, for doing that. There's a question here. I vaguely remember the discussion of the record note tab being updated to show if there are notes. That has not been done yet, Sandra.
There is a wish list for that in Launchpad for the Evergreen community. It is still there. It's just nothing has happened with it yet. But we're still wishing. Very, very much so.
Okay, Jeanette asked to show how to remove those boxes one more time. Can you do that one more
So
time?
those boxes are part of the, no, I have to find them. The location barcode column. So when we have that checked, it's going to appear here. Now you can always give more space in the column widths section to give a little more, but you always, I mean, you always want to give that space to the columns that really. So to get rid of that, you'll go back into your manage columns. I always find it's easier to deal with it all with the grid columns configuration modal, and then just unchecking it from there and then reorganizing base. So I would have owning library call number barcode on the left and have that information as the replacement for that location barcode column. And then always make sure you save grid settings.
So this is one of the things that I have been waiting for, and I'm just going to project my enthusiasm about this. I know not everybody loves change, and that's understandable, but we have moved from the old T-Pack to what is referred to as the B-Pack because it's built using bootstrap infrastructure, doesn't matter. It is the upgraded OPAC for Evergreen, Indiana. And I'm going to click here, take a look at that. It is nothing like ground shaking or anything like that. It has expanded a little bit. It is more responsive to mobile screens. You may or may not have had patrons interact with you to say, I can't find this button or that button. They're there, but they may be in different locations. I'm going to go ahead and log in here real quickly so you can see what I think is the most exciting. Oh, do I think this is the most exciting? No, I don't think this is the most exciting, but it is exciting. Is this cleaner experience for patrons here. We do have an outstanding question right now. I don't have anything in here to show you on whether patrons are able to pay partial bills in here. The interface makes it look like they can, but we're in communication with the credit card processor to see if that's real or not. So I would keep telling patrons you have to pay it all, but that may not be the case. We may have some update on that. Would be awesome if we were able to break out charges if patrons were able to break out charges if necessary or pay partial. So in here, one of the things that I do think is also exciting is that lists are much more reliable and well, they load. They didn't always load in the traditional or the previous version. So you also have some options here. You can view this list and it's just going to look like that, or you can view it in the catalog and that's going to bring it up as a search result. And there are different options with both of those. This is an old list that I've had running around with me for a long time. But that brings me to the thing that I do think is pretty awesome. In here, I'm just going to use this to go into this catalog record. First of all, there's too much white space here. We'll work on getting that fixed. But this is what's exciting here. This is simplified. It's cleaner looking. And if you hadn't already been on this page, these are going to default to close. I'm going to, well, they are. And then you have just a really nice representation of our extended content. Of course, I'm getting excited about this, but what I really want to tell you about is Aspen, but I'm not prepared to do that yet because we're going to get through the Boo Pack. So one of the things, the Boo Pack, we called it the Boo Pack, and now it's hard to change. One of the things that came along with enabling this new OPAC experience is also the ability to create carousel widgets for your website. So I've included here, because there is not documentation yet that I have found for doing this easily, I've included a link to the original development ticket that has a conversation about how to do this. You get down past all of this stuff. This actual comment right here is how you do it. So this utilizes your library's location ID, org unit ID. That's going to be your carousel underscore. That stands for location, LOC. And it's going to use this iframe. You also have the ability to configure like the width of that frame and the height of it. And what that will allow you to do, and there are some little idiosyncrasies in this, is take what is on the OPAC, and I'm going to go back here, click on this. You can see this is the OPAC, scope to Evergreen, so it's not a specific library, but if it was your library, it would be this. So I have these carousels at the catalog, but now I just have this website. And in this website, I was able to embed this. And I have not figured out how to take just one carousel and put it in here. But if I only had one carousel and wanted to include it here, I could. Also, there is the option, maybe your OPAC does not include any of your local carousels in it. You may not be using that URL. You could use that for your website. You could use your local library stuff for the website and then just the OPAC. There are lots of options now that are available to you. I'm going to go on from there. Are there any questions about the catalog or comments? I think that's one of the things that is going to take a little bit of getting used to. The other thing is you're not going to have a lot of time to get used to it because we're going to be going to a new catalog experience. But with that said, this catalog will still be available as well because there are some uses for all of them. And now we can have those conversations as well. Okay, acquisitions. I know there are some acquisitions libraries in here, and some of you have come up against these new things, and some of you saw them before they came out. I personally am very excited about these because I worked on the development for all of them. There are new interfaces for purchase orders, line items, selection lists, as well as a new interface for loading mark orders. I'm not going to go into those interfaces in here because I know it's very specific to a few number libraries, but there is going to be acquisitions training for libraries who are interested in investigating it and perhaps implementing it for your libraries, because now we have, again, more tools that are more intuitive to use than previously. And I am very excited about that. I'm also very proud of the work that has been done by so many people within and without Evergreen, Indiana. But if anybody that has acquisitions wants to ask real quick or complain, because this is one of those things where it works great and then all of a sudden it doesn't, throw that into chat. There'll be no shame. So with any upgrade, if you have been around Evergreen for a while, but it's not exclusive to Evergreen, there are bugs in the software, and Evergreen ILS is massive software, so there's plenty of room for bugs. There are bugs where things just don't work. There are bugs, what we call regressions, where things used to work and then they don't work. There are also things that are wish list items, which is one of the things that Sandra brought up about having that counter in the bibliographic notes, record notes. So bugs is a kind of this big bucket of ideas. Is it broken? Is it missing? Is it messing with our workflows? All of those things. So these are 3 specific ones that we put here, but there are more. They include the one that was mentioned earlier about not being able to edit or delete the entries within a statistical category. Also, the hold count on the holds pull list is inaccurate. This is something that we see in different interfaces where there is a need to count something, that sometimes the counting doesn't happen all the way, doesn't happen accurately. And so there is a bug about this. And then also, if the staff view is used while you're placing a hold from a patron's record, if you go to the staff view, it's going to reset the information there, and so that you'll no longer be placing a hold for them and you won't be able to get back to their account easily. Highly problematic. Now, this is not an issue if you go to that record first and then you go to place a hold and you scan a library card or whatever. It's just if you're placing that hold from their account, which is a very convenient way to do things, this blows that information away and then just doesn't work. So that is also a bug. A note about this presentation too. So when these things are emailed to you, including your LEUs, which Roberta will talk about, you'll get a link to the slide deck. If this is green, it's a link, and it's going to take you to the thing that it's talking about. Okay. We have talked about lots of things. We have not talked about even more things. There are so many fixes, so many features that we are maybe not using yet, or didn't think it was worth saying, oh yeah, that one column is fixed, or something like that. You can read all about them. So there are links here to the release notes. They are pretty dang technical. And that's, I linked it to the start, but if we scroll up to the beginning, you can navigate through it like this. I think these are very interesting. That might be because of the role that I play in this consortium and in the community. You might also think it's very interesting. I would encourage you to read until you can't stand it anymore. That might take 30 seconds. That might be every last letter that is written down here. So please, if you have the time to do that, take it. But also linked here, the tabular release notes. It's the same thing as the other ones, but it is organized perhaps in a more visually intuitive manner.
A lot of it sounds less technical.
It does sound a less technical. What it does here is it lists a lot of the bugs that were referenced. So these are titles of those bugs. And then again, it's going to link you into Launchpad, which is where we track the issues for the software. Then we are very lucky in Evergreen, Indiana. We have very active committees, work groups, as well as Britta, who write amazing documentation. But this is a case of, but wait, there's more. And this is the Evergreen software documentation. It is very generalized, so it's not going to take into account Evergreen Indiana policies and procedures, but it is going to talk about how different aspects of the software just work without all of the other things customizing it. You can change the version that you're looking at down here in the corner. It does have a fairly nice search up here to get through. So I would say don't necessarily read every word that's on the page for this, unlike the release notes, but it might be helpful for you. Okay. Announcements. And these are going to be good announcements. So the first one is we have our annual meeting coming up. It's going to be on March the 11th, and it's going to be in the afternoon. You need to register, and you are all invited. Every director of an Evergreen, Indiana member library is a member of this council, whether they realize it or not. They can have a proxy or a delegate instead. We do have to have a quorum for that meeting, and there is some limited business that happens, including the acceptance of slate of officers for the elections that will commence after it. March the 11th, that link right there is a registration link. It is also on the Evergreen Indiana catalog. Please, please, please join us. It's a Zoom meeting. And we hope Zoom is working better than it was before.
Fingers crossed.
The next one is Evergreen Indiana Aspen introduction and kickoff, and this is for all of our members. We have been working hard to deploy Aspen for at least a month now. We have a cohort of your colleagues in a train the trainer group, and they're going to be community resources for you and helping. They're going to get first glances at this. It is on President's Day. Yes. But it's going to be recorded, Robert. It's going to be recorded. Because the thing that's going to happen after that, and this is really meant to be an introduction and to just say, this is where we're at, this is what's going on, and this is what's next, is that there are going to be more trainings after that. We'll have some administration trainings. And one of the things, so Equinox is going to be our support provider for the Aspen Discovery Service. And they're going to have office hours for both our trainers as well as library administrators. And when I say library administrators, that's going to be the person within the library or persons that are going to be administering Aspen. There are layers of administration, right? So there's going to be central administration, which actually starts with Equinox and then comes to the Evergreen Administrative Office. So this team that you have right now with myself and Britta and Jeremy and Kristen. And then there's going to be somebody in your library that also is working on this. It has been going on since 1, but it's being recorded, Nikki, and you'll be able to watch the whole thing later on. So we're going to have that introduction meeting. I want to show you right now what Aspen is looking like. It will be very brief, but let me close a thing or two because we are right at the end. So I am on a live Aspen Evergreen website right now. It is not complete by any means, but you can definitely see what's going on. I'm going to actually put into chat, not the one that I'm looking at. So this is going to be the consortium catalog. What you'll notice is, of course, this is catalog.evergreenindiana.org. But then I also have opened in this tab Hagerstown.evergreenindiana.org. They look the same right now just because we've cloned the template. But there is the opportunity now for every member library in Evergreen, Indiana to have their own access point into a catalog experience for their patrons. So one of the things that I wanted to show you here, I know that Hagerstown is a member of the Indiana Digital Library. We've been working on configuring Overdrive coming into this. And so here is one of the things I just searched for Nnedi Okorafor in the online collections, and you can see that I got this result. I'm now in a record page, and there is now the option. This is what's called a grouped record. And you can see that I have a book, an audio CD, and an e-audiobook in the same thing with the option to check it out directly from Libby. Very, very excited about this. There are a lot of other cool things. We will have, of course, Novelist Select is going to be integrated, and it's going to look a little bit different in here than it has previously. There's going to be more things that are pulled out from the MARC and put in different places. We're still debating on whether or not we're going to have Goodreads open for everything, because Goodreads, you know, can be good, can be bad.
It's awesome.
But also can just be awesome. And yeah, so that is your sneaky preview of Aspen in the works. And that's all I have. Are there any questions for either Britta or I? There will be so much information upcoming soon. But we're very excited about all of that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Britta.